I remember one day he was home, and we had to take him up to Logan Regional Hospital because he got really bad. And they told us, don't even admit him. Just tell him you need an ambulance ride or a helicopter ride to Salt Lake. And I remember when they loaded him in the ambulance and I was riding down with him, I remembered a story that was shared by one that said, it was kind of the same situation. And she said, do I believe? Do I believe what I believe? And I had that question come to me. I said, do I really believe what I believe? And it was 100% yes. 100% yes. And I honestly think, and I've watched people go through things like this, that are just lost. So lost. And I don't blame them. And I think everybody comes with a light. Everybody comes with a light. And I think that light can lead them into beautiful, beautiful areas.
In our podcast, Hearing the Unheard, Stories of Transformation, we discuss a variety of sensitive subjects such as suicide, suicidal ideation, self-harm, abuse, and faith crisis. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi, welcome to our podcast, Hearing the Unheard, Stories of Transformation, presented by Pause Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Stauffer, and I'm very excited to introduce to you our friend, Kristi Smith. Hi, Kristi.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am good.
Good.
Thank you.
Let's share with our listeners a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us just your background?
Okay. I am a Cache Valley native, lived here my entire life. I have been married to my best friend, Robert, for over 40 years. Sometimes I can't remember the exact count, but over 40 years. We have 3 children, and I have 5 grandchildren. And I work in an amazing place. Mm-hmm. So life is good. So
you were raised here in Cache Valley?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I lived in Wellsville and Wellsville, River Heights, and Providence growing up. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about like hobbies that you have or interests.
Oh, hobbies. I love to be outdoors. I love to go for walks. I love to go for car rides, just out in the beautiful areas of the valley. Playing with my grandkids is always such a highlight to be with them. So, and I just keep busy.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about your work experience.
My current work experience?
Mm-hmm. And the past. What else
past.
You've done?
Mm-hmm. I started off my career doing hair for 17 years, and then I did bone density scans, and then I've gone into receptionist, and now I am the office manager at Pause Wellness, and I couldn't feel more blessed or happy to be here.
Oh, we're so glad you're on the Pause Wellness team. Wow, it's so awesome.
Thank you.
So we've known that you have a story that you've been through in your life that we're so thankful to have you here to be able to share that story with people and what you've been through in your life. So let's just start wherever you'd like to start with that story.
Okay. Well, I mentioned I have 3 beautiful children. My oldest daughter doesn't live too close. She's a little bit further away. And then we have a son named Tanner, and he was our middle child. And then we have a daughter, Kaylee. When Tanner was 16 years old, he experienced his first cancer. He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and the treatment at that time for that cancer was we would go down once a month for 4 months and he was admitted in the hospital, and he would have his chemotherapy done there. And then after chemo was complete, he did 6 weeks every single day of radiation at the Huntsman Center. So after that, there was many tests, lots of things in between, all of those events that we had to keep testing to see how he was doing, if it was working, not working. But then after the treatments, every 3 months we went and he was tested and he was clean, no cancer, and till he reached the 2-year mark. We're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he was interested in serving a mission for our church. So at that point, he was able to fill out his papers after he'd been clean for 2 years. And
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Let's go to the point when he first you guys just first discovered that he had cancer. So when he was a sophomore in high school at the time?
Yeah, Andy, sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you discover it, and how did he discover it, and what was that like to receive a diagnosis like that for a sophomore in high school, your own son?
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough. He'd been complaining about a backache, and he had a weightlifting class at school, so we just assumed he'd done something to hurt his back, and we just kept doing the treatments you would normally do at home. And it finally got so bad, he said, we need to go be checked. And so we went into the hospital. He had I believe a bulging disc at that time. But they ran blood work, and they came back that the blood work showed that his counts were very high off, and we were sent down to Primary Children's Hospital. As a mom, it's the most heartbreaking thing you can experience. Our family rallied together. We have, at the time, we lived in a congregation that surrounded us with friends and neighbors, and they were amazing. They uplifted us so much and carried us through the hard times. One of my cherished memories is we took him to Salt Lake one weekend, and we come home, and the school had laid out huge posters, and all the student body had signed it, and they had taken it to our house and wrapped it around the outside of our house. And I know he felt so loved when he was able to see that. So, yeah.
Can you walk us through a little bit of the emotional roller coaster of the diagnosis portion, and when you first hear that it's cancer and it's your son, and you hear about the type of cancer and the prognoses and different things like that? Was it up and down? Was it constant? What was it like?
At first, it was pretty constant.
Was it?
It was just, it was the unknown. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know what the treatments were going to be. We didn't know the outcome, what it would be. So at first it was just waiting to get all the answers. And then we received the answers, and at that point you feel like you can start to move forward a little more. You're given more hope. You have a plan. That's what's going to help him recover.
So before you got answers, the unknown, that you're probably, I don't know, did you assume the worst? Was there fear?
For him, I didn't. At that time, I didn't have that fear. I thought, well, this can't be. He's 16 years old. He's going to be fine. This is just a bump in the road that he has to go through, that our family's going to learn some incredible lessons from. So for that one, and then after they confirmed that this is one that he would be able to recover, one of the cancer medications that they gave in the chemotherapy will cause sometimes a 1 to 2% risk of a secondary cancer. And so we were very confident in, that low risk, and the medicine was going to do its part. And we just had to go through the hurdles.
Yeah. So you believed that it would work. You had faith in that. And then as you got some more answers or some more clear diagnoses and prognoses, what did you feel? Did you feel like, okay, we've got a plan, this is going to work? Was there hesitation?
No, I've always been one that I have a lot of faith. And I just felt comforted at that time that this would be okay. This would be okay. So definitely tons of emotions. We had at that time, I think she was an 11-year-old daughter that we were having to be in and out of our home all the time. We take turns taking him to Salt Lake, and so that was probably part of the hard part too, was making sure our other children were still taken care of.
See, that's a side that's often unseen, right? Because when one child has got some kind of health issue, and we rally the team to focus in on that one. Well, when you have other children, oftentimes they can feel neglected, they can feel, unseen.
Yes.
And so it's a juggling act, isn't it?
Yes. And that's why I loved our neighbors and our congregation so much, as they made sure she was,
They helped with that.
well taken care of. They would come get her and take her to Lagoon with them, or they would, invite her over for lunch or anything like that. They were so good to help care for her.
That's great. So you said the phrase, it would be okay. That was kind of the answer that came to you. Hindsight, that's kind of it's a pretty broad statement that it would be okay. Sometimes we get an answer like that, and we might make assumptions or conclusions about what that means. What
Right.
did it mean to you at the time?
At the time, I really felt like this would be okay. This was a trial that we'd have to go through. We knew he would probably have some health issues due to the chemotherapy that would carry over, but those were things we felt like we could handle.
So you felt like we're going to attack this. We got this.
We got this.
Yeah. Okay.
And
then what happened? Yeah.
And then after he met his 2 years, he turned in his mission papers and he received his call. He was going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for his mission. And I didn't know that he had been not feeling very well. And so on the Sunday, we went to our church, and he bore his testimony and announced his mission call and where he would be serving. And later that afternoon, he come and said, "Mom, I'm not feeling good. I think we need to go be checked." And once again, it didn't really cross my mind. I just thought, we're good. He's just got a case of the flu or something. So we went to the urgent care. They tested for several different things, and it was nothing. And they did a blood test. And he came in, and it was just like a rock through the heart. He said, his counts are off. So, sorry. We went home, and we called our leader of our church and some friends and some family, and they came over. And we gave Tanner a blessing through our faith, and he and I drove to Salt Lake that evening, and they admitted him the next morning. And once again, the roller coaster started, that we didn't know what it was. And I still felt like, okay, we need to find out what this is, and then we can go from there.
When he was looking into a mission, at the time he was doing well, health-wise. So was there a part of you that was like, oh, I don't know, maybe, or did you feel like, this is kicked, we've got it, go forward, live your life?
Yeah.
You were ready to just move forward from that.
We were.
You felt it was behind you?
We felt after 2 years of him not having any side effects, too much, anything like that, that we were good. We were good. It was a part of a story that we would have to share, with others and trials, but I always felt like we were going to be good. I just needed to know the answers from the secondary cancer, and that cancer was AML leukemia. It was caused by the 1% to 2% risk of the secondary or the first cancer treatment that he had. So that was tough. We really thought we were
he
in
was
the clear
in
with
that small demographic that was affected by
small.
the medication that way, the treatment.
Yeah, there is normally primary children's, they said they have about 175 kids that relapse a year, and 1 to 2 of them are from a primary other cancer. So he was definitely in the minority.
Wow.
And at this time, he was the mascot for Logan High for 3 years. And during that time, he just excelled, and he performed with the Jazz Bear, and, he had all these wonderful experiences, and that just kind of came to a quick halt.
So he comes home and he's not feeling well. That's the same day.
Correct.
And then you went to Primary Children's House soon after that?
We drove there that night.
That night.
Yeah.
And then the test results came that same night?
No, we were just there. Were admitted first thing the next morning. They placed, went in surgery and did a port. Started all the blood tests. They did tons and tons of tests on him. Is it okay if I share this?
Sure. Yes, please do.
In the primary children's, we went back there because that's where he had been treated before, and they knew everything about what he had. So in primary children's, they have these beads. I have a jar of beads that represent everything that he has been through. And just a couple of the things.
Here, I can hold the beads.
I would love you to. Thank you. I just want it. Like having your birthday in the hospital, having biopsies done, clinic visits, steroids, CT scans, emergency rides in the ambulance, hair loss, holidays in the hospital, IVs, lumbar punctures. There's 47 different things that these beads represent, and Tanner has 39 of those in there, and there's probably well over 300 beads in that jar.
Because of those 39, he had to repeat them so often.
Multiple, yeah. Yeah, so that's just a reminder to me at how strong he was.
How much he went through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you keep this?
It's in my office. I have a Tanner cabinet that holds all of his treasures for me. It's his yearbooks, we also created a blog during his treatment. And so I have that book on there.
So you have the journey all documented.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we all took turns. We'd all write a post. My daughters, Tanner, when he felt good enough, he would send a post of thanks to everyone that was supporting him. He had great friends. So
wow.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
You bet. Thank you.
So he's back in it now. At the time, for our listeners who may not understand, missions are such a big thing. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance that goes along with it. And so we all get anxiously awaiting this moment where they go on their mission, and you go to the airport and you say goodbye, or you go to the missionary training center and you say goodbye. Right. And once the new diagnosis came back, was there a part of you that was like still hanging on, or even with Tanner, a part of him that was still hanging on to the mission? And kind of that must have been a wrestle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It was definitely, because once again, we didn't have all the answers that we needed. So we assumed, okay, maybe push back just a little bit, but he'll still be able to serve. He looked forward to it. He was anxious to go out and serve our Heavenly Father. And as the days went along and we found out more and more of what kind of cancer he had, those hopes kind of diminished a little bit. But we turned it trying to see the positive. And I honestly believe his mission was to serve down in the Primary Children's Hospital. The nurses, the doctors, all of them called him Golden. They would fight to get to take care of Tanner in the hospital, and so we just believed that his example he set, the messages he would send to family, we believe he served his mission in Primary Children's.
Was he still holding on to, was it Baton Rouge? Mm-hmm. Was he still thinking, I'll get through this and I'll get out there?
I think beginning, yes. But after we started finding things out, I think he knew.
He started knowing.
Yeah, he was very quiet. He was a very quiet young man. So I think he hid a lot of things, that, especially during the treatments, how you feeling? I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay, Mom. But then I would find out. Sorry. Some of the things that were happening to his body. And it was hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch your child suffer.
You know, as I try to put myself in that position, I could see myself wrestling between trying to inspire hope in my child and also not wanting to deceive and wanting to give a sense of reality.
Right.
But being afraid to give that reality.
Yeah.
Because it might mean sad things.
Yeah.
Did you wrestle with that?
Yeah. I remember the first time he really took a turn for the worse. They asked us to get our family together. And decide at what point we would let him go. That was extremely hard. But Tanner was 18. So I believe he kept a lot of it from me because he was the age that they didn't have to tell me anything. It was up to him whether they told me anything. And so I think he held a lot of that back till closer to the end.
Because he was protecting you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I 100% believe that. So.
What a kind young man.
He was golden. Oh, the girls fought with him. Trust me, there was there was some of that going on.
Yeah.
You know, but
as siblings should.
Yes, he was just good.
How did your husband do through this stage?
He was our rock.
Was he?
He was our rock. He's a very emotional person, as I am. And it was hard because during that time, when he was in the hospital, he was in there for 6 months, all but maybe 2 weeks of it. And so I would go down and stay at the hospital Monday through Friday. And then I would switch and I would go home and be with Kaylee. And he would go down and spend the weekend with Tanner. And so we didn't have time to really connect with each other. You know, and that was, we talk all the time, but that was really hard not to have that direct support.
Yeah. It's difficult on the relationship.
Yeah. But he just took charge of everything.
Wow.
He just carried us through. Of course, there's a huge financial burden, you know, and our congregations were absolutely amazing. They did fundraisers and garage sales and all of that to help us through this time. So there was more than just our family not being together. It was financial. It was finding a place to stay, you know, while I'm down there, I have to find a place to stay. And when you're already struggling with trying to find gas money to drive down, you know, but little miracles happened. As soon as something like that came up, there would be somebody at my door that would offer me, you know, a check or offer me their car because Art has broken down, you know. So I really feel like Heavenly Father blesses you. He blesses you by the people that are surrounding you.
Aren't people amazing?
They're amazing.
It's I sit in this chair and I hear these stories and we're just so fortunate, even well-intended. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Even in the well-intended things that actually turn out to be a little bit painful, as we see their motives, people are just really wanting to help and comfort.
They are. We had that. My husband is a chef and has been his whole life. And while I was gone to Salt Lake 5 days a week, our congregation and our friends just said, let us bring dinner. And I was like, my husband's a chef.
Yeah.
It takes him 3 minutes to whip something up. And they reminded us that we needed to let people serve us because that's what made them feel better.
Yeah.
It was to help.
Wow.
So we allowed one night a week. And then they had her date night on Friday night was their date night. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So during this stage, you know, the latter stage of this experience with your son, Tanner, how did the sisters do during this stage?
As in
your daughters.
my daughters. Oh, the
Yeah.
sisters.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's
I
a
was
term
going
we
to-
use in our congregations.
It
yeah.
is,
I mean,
yes. My girls.
Yep.
My oldest had just had her first baby. With the first cancer, and then a little bit older. My youngest really struggled. She didn't, at that time, as any 13-year-old, she wasn't sure how to handle or to understand everything that was going on. And so we spent, as much time as we could. I would write her letters from Primary Children's and email them to her, send them to her. And so she, just trying to maybe explain a few things or just to make sure she knew I loved her. It was pretty quiet with the treatments from the girls. We tried not to let them know a lot of the really hard stuff that was happening. But when you looked at Tanner, you would have never known. It looked like a teenage kid laying in a hospital bed playing his video game.
He didn't look sickly.
He did not look sickly. And with boys, when you lose your hair, you put a cool hat on and you're good.
Yeah.
It's a little different for girls, but
Wow.
so she did amazingly well, though. I think there was so many that loved and watched over her that she's a beautiful, both of them beautiful girls and moms.
Yeah. I can't imagine how much of switching roles so fastly, quickly all the time as a mother, right? Yeah. So your mother to your son and then your mother to your daughters and you're managing those in completely different ways, and then your wife to your husband, and then there's you.
Yeah.
You're a human too.
Yeah.
And you're going through the pain as a mother, but also the pain as an individual. And are people seeing me? Are people understanding what I'm going through? Right. And I can't imagine the juggling act that was for you.
There just wasn't time for me. I didn't allow to focus on me. I had to make sure everybody else was good.
Do you feel like that was the right move?
I do.
Do you?
I do, because down the road, I had my moments. I had my moments that I could just feel bad, be sad.
So it was almost like, not now. I'll do it later.
Right.
Right now they need me.
Right. When you're a mom, you put on an armor that you protect your children. And I felt like I needed to do that. And at some point I realized I couldn't do all of it that I wanted to.
Yeah.
So, but I got to the point, it's been 13 years. And even of last year, I went through a process that I needed to let go of a few things. And it was a good 7 months that I went through this, and I struggled and I had a hard time. But at the end of it, I was good. It was good. I was able to let go.
I want to ask about some of those details. Before we get there, since you're already crying.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go to the death, the day that happened. And can you walk us through that experience for you, your family members, etc.?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. I had a wonderful person get us borrow an apartment while we were down there, and we were I was just getting ready to go up, and I got a call from the hospital that said his lungs aren't good, we're putting him in the ICU. So I ran up there, met him down in the ICU. They'd hooked the machine on him, but he was fully conscious. I mean, he had the mask on that was pumping the air into him, and it was very painful and very, very hard on him. And he pulled it off and said, I don't want this, Mom. I don't want this. I said, Tanner, this is your choice. This is your decision. And he said, I don't want it. And I said, okay. So they took it off of him and we went upstairs. And they informed us it would probably happen soon. And it was, I believe, within 3 days from the initial being into ICU and those different things. But one morning they told us that it would be today, most likely. And so I called my husband and I rallied my children and let his best friends kind of know what was going on. The family came down and he was not in pain, which was such a blessing. They just kept him very, very comfortable. And I remember feeling at one point, well, let me back up a little bit. He, in our family, like everybody's families, when you hold hands and you squeeze each other 3 times, it means I love you. Well, we were all surrounding him, and I had his hand and my youngest daughter, and had a hand, and then my husband and my other daughter was just holding his feet and his legs. And he did that motion with all 4 of his limbs at the same time, letting us know that he loved us. And it was within a short time that he passed. So we were able to spend as much time. Primary Children's is a beautiful, beautiful place. They allowed us to spend as much time with him as we could, as we wanted to. So we did, but we were all exhausted. I wanted to get my daughter home. So we went home, and my husband sent out a message that just said, please give us a little time. But I think the biggest blessing that happened during that period was after he had passed, we called our bishop, who was amazing, our faith leader. He had come down every week. Didn't matter what the storms were. Didn't matter. He had come, and we told him that he had passed. And the next day was, we call it stake conference. It's a larger gathering of the congregations in our area. And our stake president, who lives just almost across the street from us, shared that Tanner had passed. And that we needed their prayers. And I felt such peace and comfort during that time, those first few days home. So
that's a lot of people praying for you.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's a big group.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. For the listeners that don't know, a ward congregation is usually around 300-ish people.
Yeah.
A stake is 8 to 10 of those wards.
Yeah.
And so that stake leader invoked the prayers and faith and fasting of a lot of people.
A lot of people.
How did you see that comfort come through to you?
Oh, just being able to rest. Just to rest. You know, there was a couple things that I remember specifically. I had one friend that had called probably 50 temples every 3 weeks and made sure Tanner's name was on those temples. The next day when I was home, I was just laying on my bed. I remember opening my eyes, and my sister, one of my sisters, was just sitting there. And she was just watching over me. And all of my blood sisters and brothers were so supportive. So supportive. So there was just little tender mercies all along the way.
This is a really tough question, but as I've spoken with other parents that have lost a child, especially through a long battle of cancer that is so draining and so complex and so painful to watch. And then these parents have expressed that it's really hard, really painful to appreciate relief because you feel guilty for feeling relief that your child is no longer suffering.
Right.
Because it means that your child is no longer here. So there's this kind of juxtaposition that you get in with trying to heal in feeling relief and what it means to feel that relief.
Yeah.
Did you experience that?
I think what I felt as far as relief goes was that he wasn't fighting it anymore. He never, like I said, expressed very much pain to me, which I'm sure there was because I knew of a couple circumstances, but he didn't have to be in that situation anymore. That was relief for me.
And did that make you feel bad to feel relief, or were you okay with it?
I was okay with it because I didn't want him to have to go through that any longer. You know, I knew what the result would be, but I didn't want him to have to go through that any longer.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Do you think that you were able to handle that well because of what you believe happens after death? Would it have been a different story if you didn't have that or didn't believe what you believe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the main point of my whole faith is I believe there's another life after this. And I believe that's where he is. I believe he is in such a good place and he's so happy and with family and just cared for. Sometimes I think he looks down at me and says, "Mom, knock it off. You've done this enough." You know, but
little communications.
We just know family is forever. I believe that with 100% of my heart.
Wow.
So,
well, thank you for sharing that side of this story. We want to switch gears now. Let's go to the other side of like, okay, what happened? Like, how do you get back to real life? How do you interact with people? How do you deal with the trauma and the loss? How do you deal with pain as it keeps coming? What have people done? Let's just take that whichever direction you want it to go.
Oh boy, that's big. The people that surround you will carry you. I honestly believe that. I believe that they're put in our lives to be able to help us through trials. We had just such a strong support system. I only remember maybe once of having someone say something that was hurtful, like, "Are you over it yet?" You know, something like that. And I just remember thinking, I will never be over this. But I'm not. As you can tell, I still have tears. But there's joy. I'm at the point now that I feel so much joy that our family is good. It's good. He's still very much a part of it, you know, with us. Just people reaching out. And I think people are afraid to sometimes say something. And I never grew tired of hearing, "I'm sorry," or "I love you," or "Do you want a Slurpee today?" You know, just, it didn't have to be big things. It was just, "Can I come sit for a few minutes?" You know, those were the personal things that I needed. So
not comments of, "Hey, here's how we fix this," but
Right.
"Hey, I'm by your side.
Exactly.
I'm here with you. I'm
You
sorry.
can't.
I love you."
Yeah. They can't fix this.
Yeah.
This is something they can't fix. Only Heavenly Father can fix. And he did.
In fact,
He did.
can we dissect that one comment that did
Sure.
hurt? So a person says to you, "Are you over it yet?" See, if I try to, as ignorant as a statement like that might have been, if I try to put myself in that position, I'm wondering if that person was trying to have you manage their feelings. Like, they're not okay with you still struggling with this. Maybe they're afraid that it's a sign of a loss of faith, or it's a sign of
Right.
Whatever it might be. But I think if we can help our listeners understand why a comment like that would be so painful and not helpful, that will help them.
You just gave me a whole different view of maybe what that meant to them. So I think a lot of it was well intended in the way that said, are you hurting less? Is it getting better? Is it, but it was just worded incorrectly.
Yeah.
But I think, maybe good intent was there. They just didn't know how to express it.
Yeah, that helps a lot because when we're helping someone that's gone through loss or pain, we can say out of the goodness of our hearts just terrible things that we don't realize are so terrible.
Correct.
And I think a basic principle that I'm learning from your story is try to avoid statements that are trying to rush or hurry up your healing process.
Right.
And rather just express that I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I'm on this journey with you.
Yeah. That's the best thing, is if you can take all those people with you on your journey, and I've learned so much about being cared for. As moms, we're caretakers. We do, everyone around us, we care and take care of. But it was so wonderful to be cared for.
Yeah. It's interesting. We, as Latter-day Saints, we believe that a part of our baptismal covenant is this phrase, to mourn with those that mourn.
Yeah.
What we maybe have to remember is it doesn't say fix those that mourn.
Right.
It says to stand by them and mourn with them. And that's beautiful counsel from God.
Yeah.
It's someone who understands the grieving process.
Yeah.
For those that are grieving.
Yeah. And even, these 13 years later, I still have friends that text me on his death day and just remind me, that we're loved, and they haven't forgot him. So that means a lot. I think one of the most, you were probably going to get to this about maybe reaching the one.
Yeah.
We had an opportunity. One of Tanner's really good friends went to a mission in Chile. And he was just new out there and hadn't learned to speak the language very well. And he was visiting a family that was members of our church. And they had lost a son the exact way that my son had passed, with cancer. And they were struggling horribly, horribly. Didn't have the support system around them, that kind of thing. And he wrote home and asked me if I would send them a letter. And so I just poured my heart out to them. I wanted them to know I understood. And yes, it's wonderful to have the people surround you, but you really only need one. And that's our Savior, Jesus Christ. He helps us through the trials. And he was reading it to them in the best he could. And he said, but they completely understood. Their tears came. And if I could reach one, I would love to reach that mother and let her know that she is precious and she is cared for. So, and anybody else that can use a little inspiration that we're looked after and we're loved.
Yeah, and you never know. Just from a podcast like this, goes onto the internet, you never know who might stumble upon it and how far away that might be.
Right.
And so we just appreciate your courage and being willing to share that. I think about the family. They were in Chile. So it's a hemisphere away.
Yeah. Yeah. And he said, I was watching them go through, and he said, you just had such strength around you that can you please share with her? And I can't find the letter. I've searched everywhere trying to find the letter to even remind myself what I told her back in those very tender parts where we were still at that point. So,
see, here's the interesting thing as I hear this, because on one hand, you say you feel comfort knowing that the Savior has an answer for this. He's, I assume resurrection is a great promise that you are so excited for and feel a lot of peace from.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, he's able to help you leverage your loss and your pain and what you've been through to provide comfort and understanding from someone from a completely different country, completely different language, someone you may never see on earth.
Yeah.
And you can reach that far away.
Yeah, I think we can. I think our reach is endless. I think we can, with the Savior's help, I think we can just soar. There's so much love and forgiveness, and that he provides us, that we can help. We're here to mourn. We're here to help each other along the way, and that's what I want my journey to be.
Wow. That's inspiring.
Thank you.
Can you tell us of any, as you look back on what you've been through, any, thinking errors that you had, or thoughts that, or maybe paths you went down that you thought, maybe this will bring me some help and it didn't, or how can we learn from your learning, if that makes sense? And maybe there aren't any of those. Maybe you've just been able to be guided and supported throughout the whole journey.
I think I was blessed in that area.
Were you?
I really think I was. I remember one day he was home, and we had to take him up to Logan Regional Hospital because he got really bad. And they told us, don't even admit him. Just tell him you need an ambulance ride or a helicopter ride to Salt Lake. And I remember when they loaded him in the ambulance, and I was riding down with him, I remembered a story that was shared by one that said, it was kind of the same situation, as she said, do I believe? Do I believe what I believe? And I had that question come to me. I said, do I really believe what I believe? And it was 100% yes. 100% yes. And I honestly think, and I've watched people go through things like this, that are just lost. So lost. And I don't blame them. If they just... And I think everybody comes with a light. Everybody comes with a light. And I think that light can lead them into beautiful, beautiful areas.
I love that. Do I believe what I believe? Mm-hmm. There's a fine line between confirmation bias,
right,
which is like, I'm just telling me the story that I need to tell myself.
Right.
And then there's preparing ourselves ahead of time for eventual possible trauma.
Yeah.
And having chosen faith or principles that will be in place when we need it.
Right.
And it sounds to me this wasn't a confirmation bias situation. This was, you had prepared yourself for this.
Yeah. And I think through life we all have little trials that maybe help us build a little more strength and a little more character and a little more faith all along the way, that you kind of tuck those aside, and then they come out when you need them, when you really need them.
Recall. There's a verse in the Bible that says, the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance. So one function of the Holy Ghost in that is that he can recall when you need what you need.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful?
It's such a great promise.
Oh,
He's the comforter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a blessing. Such a blessing to go through such hard things and still be okay. We're still okay. We have joy. You
still have pain?
Yes.
Every day?
Yes. But the joy is starting to overshadow the pain. I think it's with time. Mm-hmm. It's been a little while.
Let's give our listeners an idea of how much time that is, because you said the joy is just now beginning to overshadow the pain.
Yeah.
How long has your son been gone?
He's been gone 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah. And it's kind of the same way. It's a stepping stone. Each day, something's maybe a little less painful, and other times it hurts twice as much. So it's backwards and forwards, but I think as long as I'm on earth, it will continue to heal.
Wow.
But you don't love someone. There was a saying that pain is the price you pay for love. I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was maybe President Russell M. Nelson who said, or I can't remember, but to take the sting out of death, you'd have to take the love out of life.
Yes. It's true. It's true.
Wow.
So,
if you could speaking of the one, right? If there was a person somewhere listening to this that you could look them in the eyes and tell them one thing, what would that one thing be about your experience with your son?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. Believe it will get better. Believe you have help. Believe you're being watched after. Believe in your light that's within you. You know, we're given that. Just believe. Believe things will be okay.
That's wonderful. And believing is something we can choose to do.
Right. It's a choice. It's a choice I have to make.
Yeah.
Regularly.
It's not always easy, is it?
No, I have to. I have to choose it every day. But I get to.
Yeah.
I get to. And I find it.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for that example and for everything you've shared with us today.
Thank you for allowing my tears.
You're so strong. You're probably stronger than you realize you are.
I've been told that.
Yeah. I just know that this message is going to help people. So thank you for being willing to share that and to be able to express yourself in such a vulnerable way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's an incredible story. And I want people to have hope.
Well, thank you.
So, thank
I
you.
know you'll bring it to them. So thank you, Kristi.
So thank you.